Good evening, dandies. Welcome to Undetermined, the podcast.
Well, welcome, man.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
How are you guys going with COVID?
Fuck COVID. I'm done with it.
All right, so don't talk about that.
No, we can. I mean, shit, what else can you talk about? You know, there's nothing else going on. That's the problem. I mean, the biggest thing that was bothering me today is just that fact. I was just thinking earlier about how this summer was supposed to be a really good one. I mean, for us especially, just with the podcast kicking off and getting to know so many people, and man, there were going to be so many shows that we were going to go to, get backstage passes to, invited as guests, and you know, even people just that are close to us. I mean, that I've met and want to hang out with that are just an hour and a half away. I mean, it wouldn't matter if they were next door. Yeah. You know, I can't go. Yeah. Can't go to their house.
Yeah, we haven't seen each other in months, exactly. And this is not. Yeah. Our normal routine is we get together every few months anyway.
For a while there, about once a month.
Yeah. If you guys go somewhere, do you get fined? Like, are there financial fines for you for that?
No, I mean nowhere locally, as far as I know.
Okay.
Anywhere as far as the state of Missouri is concerned, it's really just everything is. Here is just strongly encouraged.
Okay.
Right. Kansas City, where I'm at, the mayor said till early next year. So
yeah. But I've seen so many people here anyway violating that order. And well, I mean, if you're working at a gas station for minimum wage, I don't expect you to enforce that order either.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Man, but if there was a job where I would feel the need to wear one more, it would be that one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we've got those mandates here, but like I say, nobody's really enforcing them. Nobody's making sure that that's the case or anything. It's just strongly encouraged. Us Americans are too much about our freedom.
Yeah, I have. I've seen that, you know, a little on news stories and stuff. You know, certain people with strong ideas about freedom, which, you know, I can understand, but at the same time, I don't know. Like,
well, and I think the source becomes an issue for a lot of people here. I don't think it's so much that people like if it came from somebody like, you know, a hardcore Republican saying y'all need to wear your masks now, they do it.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
But it's instead become like a liberal conspiracy.
Right.
Like we're using it to drag down Trump and the country.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So they fuck that. They're trying to infringe on my rights. Yeah. It's weird. It's crazy.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
Nothing evidence-based.
No, of course not.
Yeah, well, no one needs evidence these days, do they? It's just your opinion, and everyone's entitled to their opinion, and that seems to be the common line used.
Right.
It's like, well, that's my opinion or whatever. I overheard a guy yesterday talking about masks, and he was saying they're not masks, they're muzzles, and it's not about a virus, it's about control and stuff, and you know, this is a guy who lives in our town, this small town that's effectively, you know, pretty safe or whatever. So, but you know, he's got a lot of time on his hands at the moment because we're in stage 3 lockdown. We're called at the moment, where you're really only supposed to go out for work and exercise and, you know, caregiving or whatever. But you know what. It can only be based on his opinion, which what's that based on?
I just feel like if we had the power, like, to start this pandemic and really put the whole world on lockdown and really fuck things up, I think we would probably have been able to found a way to have done this without a pandemic. Right, we'd have the resources, like the money and enough smart people to think, you know what, there's a better way. than killing a bunch of people or making them think we're going to kill them, right? We could probably come up with something else, I would think.
And I would say if it was really a left-wing conspiracy thing, then the outcome of it wouldn't be that the top 1% of what I read the other day about the top 1% of US richest people, that the billionaires apparently since March their wealth has increased by 685 billion. So I'm not sure that's really in the left wing's interest to expand the 1%'s wealth. I don't know how that works.
Yeah. Well, that's probably the biggest point, and you're right to call bullshit on it, because when you're looking at control or you're looking at issues of somehow the government's using these masks as a muzzle, I'm like, in what way? It's sort of like with chemtrails in that conspiracy.
Yeah.
People always say, well, they're dropping something on us. And I always say, well, what is it?
Yeah.
what is it that they're doing? And how are they not getting it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, there could also be Occam's razor. You could just look at the point that, maybe just people are getting really fucking sick and you need to wear a mask. And I mean, in what way is your freedom being impinged? That's what I don't understand.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
It's like, how is this muzzling you? People can't read your lips. So is that why? Explain to me how this is imposing on your freedom. That's what I just don't get.
Yeah.
Well,
they won't take the last step.
The analogy I've made is if there's a tornado coming through and the siren goes off, I don't complain about the siren. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, they're making me go down into the basement again. These goddamn liberals are going to try.
Right.
And it's exactly the same sort of thing. Oh my God, the house is on fire. They're telling me not to go back in there, but it's my goddamn house. I'll go back in there if I want to.
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand. Do they think the liberal leader just standing around, literally just laughing? Look at them wearing masks.
Yeah.
Yeah, there certainly sounds like like Matt says, there certainly sounds like there'd be a better means to it. And if they really wanted to control us, they could get us to do a lot more. It's sort of like the idea of, Bill Gates controlling everybody with the vaccine.
Yeah.
So he already has stock in your computer, in your phone, in everything you have around you.
Yeah.
Why would he need to inject you with anything?
Well, also, why is that the last,
right?
Why is that the bridge too far? Like, we've already handed over all our privacy, all our details in so many ways, and that doesn't seem to be the thing that tips people over, but the vaccine is.
Right.
I mean, I'm obviously big pharmaceutical is going to, reap so much money. That's going to happen if there's a pandemic. If there's not, they'll get you addicted to something. Like that's what they do. So I don't see. Yeah, of course they're going to make a lot of money, but I don't know. I just find it a strange tipping point for some people.
Yeah, I mean, Matt said, at one point, or posted, I think, something where it was a picture of like an Amazon Alexa, and it was, I don't want the government listening in on my conversations, or the man, or and then the next, right, and then the next panel was like, hey, big brother, I'd like to order some socks. Here's my credit card number. It's like, where's your priorities? Doesn't make sense. I mean, kind of talking about that with Creston Spires before, talking about 5G towers.
Okay, yeah.
And the capability to control us or kill us. And it's like, isn't there just probably a good possibility that they just want to make a bunch of goddamn money? And the best way to do that is to have our internet super fast and have that available to everybody to be able to one-click order. Yeah. And that's also, it's control in its own way.
Exactly. I think the whole system has been heading for so long towards this kind of top end heavy wealth.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to just all of a sudden create a new system. I don't think.
No.
They're just smarter. They're always looking for that way. That's how their mind works about how they're going to make money. So while we're thinking about whether masks are muzzles or not, they're thinking about selling masks or whatever. Like it's just a state of mind, isn't it? It's a different way of thinking.
Certainly. And I don't think that this is really helping anybody. We've talked to some people who say that there is no silver lining at the end of this. And certainly opportunists are going to make money any way that they can.
Exactly.
There's always going to be war profiteers. There's always going to be people who can profit off of a pandemic, and that's going to happen. You're going to see that happen. Yeah. But just because somebody profits off something doesn't necessarily mean there's a conspiracy that they started.
But that doesn't mean that they don't contribute to it in some way.
Yeah.
Right? They do a lot to kind of, I'm thinking of like Jeff Bezos.
Sure.
Dude made $13 billion with a B in one day recently.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem. Right? And that's a system that is rigged toward the wealthy.
Yes,
there is no way around it. There is no way around it.
No, and I think it's getting more rigged. Like the longer the game goes, the more rigged it is. But it's not I fail to see how it can all be. Everyone's working together. I don't see that. But I don't see why why would you cripple your economies to
right?
Like that part of it doesn't make sense to me.
Seems like
I think when you get to that kind of level of elite wealth, you do not understand what it's like to be poor, and you feel like you can just keep squeezing and squeezing and squeezing these people, and we're squeezed out.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I run a small business, being so small that it just employs me. And when I take my accounts to my accountant at tax time, she's genuinely baffled as to how I can live on such a small amount of money.
Yeah.
And, to me, that's normal because I know how to live on not much money. I know how to live on next to nothing. But, the difference between even, she's not wealthy, but the difference between what she earns and what I earn is tenfold,
Right.
So, there's so many. I mean, then you get to the billionaires.
Right. We can't imagine what that kind of wealth is like, and most of them can't imagine what poverty is like, right? In their minds. And I think you have to, and I get it. If I were born a billionaire, if I had always known that kind of wealth, it would suck to look at somebody poor and think, oh my God, and I'd start to have to justify it in my mind. Well, they must be lazy. That's the only reason, right? Just so they can live with themselves.
Yeah.
They have to be able to give that assignment. That's what I think is happening a lot of the time.
And I've always been fascinated that on the same token, you look at some of these people's levels of wealth. And who was it? The heir to the Johnson & Johnson families made a couple documentaries and written some things about wealth. And just that they don't get the same level of satisfaction. Like he was talking at one point about buying a Ferrari is like in accordance with how much money that he has is like buying a candy bar.
Yeah.
So he would get the same amount of satisfaction out of owning a new Ferrari as you would out of owning a Snickers.
I really feel for him.
Yeah, he's like, I don't, he's like, but I kind of like the guy because he's exposing a lot of that shit. His family's really unhappy with him.
Yeah.
Because, with the wealth being the best kept secret, they don't want us to understand how much money they have. If they did, we'd, literally eat the rich.
Yeah.
So they don't want us to know what they have. But on the same token, he's like, it's just so absurd. When you're talking about just collecting money as a number, when it becomes irrelevant to your life, you could spend every waking moment spending it and never go through it.
Yeah. No, it's a big it's a weird pissing contest, is what it finally comes down to. Cause what else can you do? You have enough to purchase pretty much anything that you want, right? There's nothing in the world that you can't have, really. Right. So what's the next step? Well, I got to have more than the next guy, which is why they buy, $200 million yachts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because that yacht says, I'm richer than you, fucker.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, a new pair of New Balances, that's my status.
Oh yeah!
If I'm walking around in new shoes, I'm feeling pretty good.
That's your drip, huh?
Yeah.
That's the
once a
chain.
year for about 2 to 3 months. I'm feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Until you walk them out. You're just like everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that sucks. Yeah, I found myself doing that. And the funny thing is I find myself doing that. I'm in a position now where I've got an education. I've got a decent job. I don't make great money. I teach, so of course I don't make great money. But yeah, I was posting a status just a couple weeks ago about my new shoes. I was so happy. I just like check them out.
Yep.
That
They're
is
Keens, and they're not cheap. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, being a teacher, that has always fascinated both my parents were teachers, and they're in the same boat. Like, it's just below the middle, I think, of like a wage or whatever. But it's always fascinated me as to why we don't pay teachers more. Like, and there are some countries, I believe, like in Scandinavian countries, where the wage for a teacher is higher, and therefore they get, the education standard is a lot higher.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I do understand the capitalist side of it. Like, if you're rich enough, then you can afford a good education, and then the rich stay. I understand that world order and all that, but I would assume that if your country was better educated, the country would be doing better. Is that naive? Or?
Sure. I mean, well, that would be the case.
Right now, the Republican Party, and I'll just say it, thrives on ignorance.
Yeah, yeah.
That is the thing. I mean, you listen to it with them all the time. The educated think they're so much better than us. No, we don't. We don't, but we do encourage you to learn a thing or two because there's something to it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think objectively too, and I've had a chance to think about this a lot, it's really easy to stop at the paradigm and say, it's just ridiculous that we're providing such an essential service and we don't get paid more for what we do.
Yeah.
But I think another big part of that too is just the population. People, when school is compulsory, as it is in the United States, the population of the United States, how many people there are here, how many teachers are employed, how many kids are in schools. It's just like the crisis with reopening schools here in America. You got to a point where we had to make every other excuse that we could to reopen other than the economic.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Even though the economic excuse is the reason why we're reopening, let's face it. The whole fact is there's so many teachers employed. There's so many schools. There's so many people taking care of so many of these kids, and it's all funded by tax money.
Yeah.
So I don't think they can afford it. I think that you would find a lot of people agree with you, but I think if you look at the dollars to donuts, you look at the actual money, everything, I think there's no way. I mean, the NBA, the reason why those guys are making money in the NFL, everything, let's face it, there's not that many of them. In every major city, there's maybe, 20, 30 guys on the roster.
If we could just find someone that did something like make $13 billion in one day and maybe get a little bit of that off of him somehow.
Sure. Nah, it's crazy talk. Pinko. We got a commie.
Yeah. Well, but we have probably our biggest, I assume our biggest sort of export and biggest industry is mining in Australia, the biggest profit making. And, that literally entails billionaires owning these mining companies, digging up parts of our country, which, then there's another issue about it, indigenous, rights to all that stuff. That's another kettle of fish. But, at the very least, taxing those billionaires and the incredible amount that they take out of this country, 1%, then you've got your schools funded for however long, I don't know, a long time. And maybe your country could look at skimming 0.05% off the military budget or something. Sorry, did I just say something bad?
No.
We have literally had ranking people at the Pentagon say, you guys need to stop giving us so much money. And the Republican Party in particular will be like, fuck no. You got to take this shit, because that's a selling point for them, because they're strong on national security and they want to keep looking like it. So they want to be able to keep shoving that money at the military, even if the military says, guys, we don't need it right now. We're fine. That literally happens.
We're choking on the money.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to family members before about, the U.S. military spending $5,000 on a hammer at an Air Force base. And I've literally had conservative family tell me, well, if they don't spend that money, though, then they don't get the budget next year.
Yeah.
So that's why they have to do that. It's like, no, that means they shouldn't get the budget next year.
Exactly.
Because nobody needs a $5,000 hammer,
Well, I did, when I was first out of school, I worked briefly as a painting contractor for the military in Australia, the Defense Department. And I was only employed in the last 2 to 3 months before the end of the financial year. So they could spend this extra money, and they would have me doing they would get teams of guys in just to spend whatever, what's left of the budget. And we'd paint the same room again that we did last year, or,
Jesus.
just shit that was really wasteful.
Right. No, I've had jobs where they're like, pick out the nicest desk that you can find in this catalog for your office.
Yeah.
Right. Whichever one you want. You just, because they wanted that budget. We got to spend this money.
It's its own kind of insanity, isn't it? When
I know. I was thinking, and all I could think was, you could fucking give me a raise. How about that?
Just put the cash in my hand. Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet you a lot of people around here would like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give me the cheap chair. I'll take the nice raise, or even a little raise. I don't know. So we should introduce you.
Oh, yeah, probably. 23 minutes in.
Right. Who are we speaking to?
I'm Jace from DEAD. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on, man. Yay.
Yeah, we had Jim on.
Yep. So we've had.
I heard that. That was good. Yeah.
Now we've had everybody in the band. Since you're a two-piece. So, yeah.
And the manager and the booker and
Yeah.
Oh,
you have to talk about some of those aspects of it, because I was thinking about the artwork and stuff, and looking at that today. So you guys do all your own art, you do all your own merch, you do all of that shit. So who's the principal designer on a lot of the artwork? Is that you?
I do all the drawing.
Okay.
The imagery is mine. And then Jem will do a lot of layout stuff. He's quite good with the, typography and the more computer-based stuff he's quite good at. So I literally, in a way, sometimes I feel a slight twinge of guilt that my job is just all creative side. Like I write most of the music, don't do a lot of the booking. Well, I do none of the booking, I'll be honest. He's very driven, and he's very good at that stuff as well. I'm sure he'd love to do less of it. I think we can see that if I'm left to keep writing songs, then more songs will come out and draw pictures. Then, we'll have merch stuff, and I don't know. We've sort of found our job after it's 10 years this year is
wow,
10-year anniversary in next month, I think. So yeah,
there are couples who don't make it that long.
Yeah. Man, yeah. I've been in a lot of relationships that don't last that long.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I'd say we can kind of feel for you in that regard, except we're not having to tour or anything else like that. But we're a two-piece unit.
Yeah.
A lot of times we'd love to be a three-piece and have like a production assistant, and
that would be nice.
That'd be nice. Yeah, it's not on the cards yet, but
it's interesting. I was talking to someone who, a musician, and actually who's recorded a couple of our albums, and he was saying to me he didn't think he could play in a two-piece because he feels like the dynamic would be too intense for him.
Yeah.
That was the first time I'd ever thought about it.
Huh.
And I can agree in some aspects it can be intense, but I think we've found where we slot together quite well.
Yeah.
And it's probably, taken a bunch of years to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I've got a 18-year-old kid, and so for much of the band, I've been, pretty hands-on dad as well. And I think when I get on tour, it's almost like, right, I'm not going to be responsible for anything. And Jem becomes the dad, and even though he's 12 years, I think, younger than me, he's sort of he holds my hand all through the keeps me safe. Yeah. But he's great to work with. We have a lot of respect for each other's, views and opinions. And I actually was listening to the interview you guys did with him, and I feel like Jem is quite good at expressing a strong opinion without sounding like an asshole.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he can be very, very strong-willed and strong-minded, but he always sounds like a decent person to me.
Right.
Yeah.
It may be kind of his minority status, just being kind of growing up in that kind of world where, you want to be able to assert yourself, but you also know people are going to not listen to you if you aren't very careful in your wording.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could be exactly right there. And he's certainly has very strong opinions about not being silenced or
right,
or not having his artistic vision come to being fucked with or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Which he's very good at just keeping on going, and I think that's been really helpful for me, because prior to this band, I mean, we played in a band together, but I've sort of always found that in a way I've been the driving force, and sometimes dragging some people along with me. And with DEAD, it's definitely two people just heading forward, and it's been pretty amazing, actually. So I couldn't be more grateful than to have him as a band member.
Well, I mean, just as a compliment, I got to say, I think the proof is in the pudding when you listen to the music.
Yeah.
It's definitely there. If it was too dysfunctional, it wouldn't sound good. And what you guys are putting out is fucking great, I think, in my opinion.
Oh, thank you very much.
Just listening to Raving Drooling again today. And so you've got what's going on in the world there. I know everything's put on hold with touring and everything else like that, but you've got some vinyl coming out, and
we've got a few projects on the go.
Mm-hmm.
Just over a year ago, we recorded with Toshi Kasai again.
Yes.
He came to Australia actually to record another band bought him out, a band from Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
He contacted us, so we got him. We figured, of course. So we brought him down to Melbourne and recorded with him, and a few days in our little town, Castlemaine. And so that stuff's at this point unmixed, but that's essentially ready to, for the next step.
Well, it's good to kind of have something in the back pot too. This, with what's going on now.
Yeah. The one good thing for us is we've been writing a lot, so we kind of got another two albums worth of material ready to go when we can afford to do stuff with it. And when we can sit in a studio with other people as well. But so there's no shortage of stuff. I guess the challenge becomes, often when we're ready to record, we've pretty much toured that material, or a great percentage of it, and we've kind of honed it down and made the tweaks that you make over time, and then we record it with the knowledge of that. But at the moment, I suppose we're working towards, who knows,
Yeah.
They're talking, you know, we just don't know when we can play. We certainly don't know when we can tour. Our state, in particular, has been the worst hit in Australia. So our borders are locked. We can't actually go into other states in the country at the moment.
Wow.
So, I wish we would do that here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's a lot harder for you because there's so many states. But yeah, it's certainly a weird time. You know, my family live in other states, and that's weird to be cut off from your family.
Do they just have the highways just like blocked off? Or?
They do, yeah. All the main roads are, as far as I know, they're all patrolled and have roadblocks. So
crazy.
Yeah. So you know, if you work, there are some towns that literally lie on the borders. So they're joined either side of the state border. So I believe they have, you know, there's often people working on the other side, you know, because it's literally a 5-minute drive or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, there are exemptions, but it needs to be legitimate, not just, I feel like going to the other side, you know.
Right. Yeah. No, we have a lot of people just going on vacation. I'm seeing so much of it now. Let's go, kids. And I'm nervous every time I see that. And maybe they're being careful. Yeah. And I get it, man, because I want to go on one so fucking bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Nice. A lot of this is probably they've made arrangements and, okay, we're going to be careful. Mm-hmm. And good luck to you. Keep my fingers crossed. Still scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't feel any comfort in doing that shit at all. Like, to be honest, I'm really exhausted with all the conspiracy theory shit. And just because we're being asked to stay at home, basically. And that's not the worst. For me, that's not the worst thing. I understand some people have bad home living arrangements or, you know, family situations where that stuff all gets trickier. And I absolutely acknowledge that I'm pretty lucky as far as that goes. But, you know, my greatest fear would be passing that stuff on to someone.
Right.
I literally couldn't. I don't think I could live with that idea. So I'm staying home, you know?
Yeah. Well, that requires empathy. Requires considering other people, things like that. That's hard. That's hard here for me.
And a lot of us aren't good at that. We're really not. Right. Yeah. Because look at the way we think. You know, we're okay. I don't want to take money from a billionaire because I might be a billionaire one day. No, you're not, asshole. No. You're not.
You're never gonna be. That's the trap. Yeah.
Yeah. And the same thing, it's interesting talking about border politics and states and things like that when you consider what's going on here and with our border with Mexico. For example, people don't understand, as you say, those border towns are places where people live and they go 5 minutes one way or the other. I mean, I've had people who I know live in Illinois, for example, who talked about what's going down in Texas. And boy, we went down there a couple of years ago and went down near the Mexican border. And you wouldn't believe how many Mexicans are there. And I'm like, yeah, they've always been there, dude. They've always been there. That line is imaginary. And there's so many people who cross that line every day. And they've got the right paperwork and everything else. And they, of course. I mean, that used to be Mexico.
Yeah, that's the thing that kills me. That I go, they're coming over into our country. And I'm like, it was their country. We fucking took it from them.
Yeah, we took it. Yeah. We made the line there.
Oh, my God. Let's get pissed off because they're in their country that we stole from them.
Yeah. Yes. That stuff is just never, I think once that bridge is crossed, you don't look back, do you? Or, you can't acknowledge that sort of, culturally, maybe you can't acknowledge it because it's too great a.
No, I think there's an element of not being able to swallow how fucking wrong that they were. On some stuff, and there's like so they dig in rather than say, guys, sorry, I was kind of an idiot about this. I made the wrong choice. Please forgive me. We're going to move forward from that. It's like, no, they can't do it. They can't come out and say that because they've invested so heavily in that narrative that they are going to look like such an idiot. And the thing is, they already look like an idiot. They just look like more of one.
Yeah. So once they instill that into the education system, like they certainly have here about, we absolutely whitewash the history since the invasion of this country. In our education, it was never acknowledged when I was at school. It was literally from the day that Captain Cook got here. Basically, that's where we started, and no mention of the massacres, and it's just literally stealing the land. It was, as kids don't know any better if that's what they're taught. It's just insidious how it becomes the cultural, as you say, narrative, and to acknowledge the darkness of it is nigh on impossible, I think.
Yeah. And we still call it, in America, we still call it like the age of discovery in some places. Wow. It's like, it's not a discovered place if somebody was already there.
Yeah, exactly.
You didn't find it, you just landed on it.
That reminds me almost like of I worked with this kid once, and I just thought it was hilarious. He showed me all this stuff he had written and songs and stuff, and I was like, wow, man, this is pretty good. And then I recognized a couple of them, and I'm like, oh, this is like Jay-Z. Dude, what? And he's like, yeah, I wrote them. Well, okay, so he technically he wrote them down, therefore he wrote those songs.
That's the same
He put them on paper with a pen.
Yeah. So you wrote it, yeah. Yeah, I'm going to teach you about a word called transcription.
Yeah.
This is what you've done here.
Yeah.
But even the funny thing is about setting those policies, as I was going to say earlier, the people in Illinois, the people in Iowa who are worried about the border or building a wall across it, the people who actually live in that area, who are actually affected by anything that goes on with immigration, don't have a problem with it. And they never have.
Yeah.
And you're that's the ultimate thing about fascism, isn't it? They think they're protecting somebody else, or they think they're working on everybody else's best interest, but they're working on their own best interest.
Right. Yeah. And you want to know how it's bullshit? Okay, ask how many immigrants have killed Americans in the last 10 years. I'll bet you it's not 180,000 Americans that were killed.
Right.
Sure.
Altogether.
Yeah.
Right? But we need to build a wall to protect ourselves from them. Meanwhile, put this piece of paper over your face. No, sir.
No way. That's control.
Yeah.
Right? It's just ludicrous.
Yeah.
It is. I think at this point, I'm just keeping my fingers crossed for November. And, I won't just cross my fingers. I'll vote. But, that's all I can do. Vote and tell others to vote and help to maybe educate people. But like you say, when people are willfully ignorant.
And they really, really are right now.
Really, really are. We just have to get more of them. And that's the big thing that's been being fought for years here in this country, is just getting the youth vote out and getting people to the polls. That's what's always interested me in talking to Jem too and other Australian guests about compulsory voting.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny. We talked to Hamish Cowan a little bit about the donkey vote. Which I found hilarious. People go in there and just draw a picture of a dick on a ballot or whatever. They're being forced to go. I'm like, that's kind of funny. Right. Fuck you making me come in here. But then still I'd be super curious to see how it would go. If we had I wish there was an experiment we could run just somehow and just be like, okay, it's not your actual vote, but let's make everybody in America just do a compulsory vote and see what would happen. Just like a poll that's required. We've got plenty of shit in America that's required for you to do. State laws get passed that we're required to, wear seatbelts or buy insurance for your car.
Right.
Or anything else. School is compulsory. We've got plenty of compulsory laws here in America. What the hell is wrong with just that? Just, make everybody vote.
What is the what was the thing about not having to vote? Why isn't it compulsory?
I think really, honestly, when you get down to the crux of it, what it is voter suppression. Yes. And more likely on the part of the Conservative Party and part of the Republican Party, it's just the less people that vote they find, because the majority of Americans, let's face it, are, they're poor, they're in bad economic straits, they're, yes, the majority are not minorities. However, if they really voted their interest, they're going to vote them out of office.
Sure, yeah.
And I think any way that they can dissuade voting in general.
Oh, they really try hard to.
They do. And they've been caught so many times basically saying in backroom sessions that that's what they're doing.
And when they take it to court, if they lose every time it's taken to court.
But the less people vote, the better off they do. Because I think that would be the end of them altogether. Yeah. And they're going to make every excuse they can about freedom. Once again, that great American word. Right. Well, somebody should have the right not to vote if they don't want to. And that's ridiculous that we would force anyone to do anything like wear a mask or vote for someone.
Is that like, I'm curious as to how the inception of it, like, has that been the same from the beginning?
Well, you have to kind of look back at the history of the United States, but I mean, every time you look at disenfranchised peoples, you look at it was made illegal for women to vote. Yeah. Right. All up until almost the 1930s. So you look at the Jim Crow era, even up into the 1960s, how much voter suppression was going on amongst blacks, even though it was, made illegal also for them to vote in the past. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sounds bad, but free white women in America couldn't even vote until, what was the year, 1929?
Yeah. Right. It's not even been 100 years.
Yeah.
That white or women in general could vote.
But saying just, that there's always been that kind of push. And it's kind of like you say, it's versions of history, right? It's the age of discovery versus the Columbian Exchange and the age of passing viruses on to indigenous people.
Yes. Yeah.
It depends on who you are, how you look at it, etc. But I'm more from the camp of, I think we're just passing on viruses to indigenous people.
Yes.
One of my favorite little memes that goes around on Facebook every once in a while is this picture of this glass, or these three glasses that are there with faces on them, and they're, like half full. One says, "I'm an optimist. This is half full." The other one says, "I'm a pessimist. This is half empty." And the other one says, "I think this is piss." All liquid. I'm like, yep, I'm from that third camp. I think this is piss.
Yeah.
I'm a realist, but yeah, I don't like any of that shit that's trying to cloud over the truth and what's going on there. But I don't know. I think it's very multifaceted when you look at the history of voting in America.
Yeah.
But whenever people aren't encouraged to vote, I consider it suppression.
Well, it's desperate when you've got them trying to shut down the mail-in ballots right now. And I mean, going to measures that just I can't even fathom. Taking mailboxes off the street, taking out mail sorting machines.
Mm-hmm. Because there's a threat of a mail-in vote.
I couldn't believe that. Like,
how much more clear can it be?
Yeah. And so what do you do about that though? Like, it's sort of it kind of defies belief in a way that could happen.
Apparently you bitch on Facebook. That's what the only thing people are doing.
Yeah.
We wait to vote. I don't know.
That'll get stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's I have a lot of friends in the US, so I do keep up on. I try to keep up as best I can with CNN or whatever, and I don't know the best places to look for information, but
I don't know some of the
things I've just been like, wow, I can't actually. It takes a little while for it to sink in.
Yeah.
What's happening?
It is for us too. It doesn't.
I I really feel for you.
Well, don't feel too bad, because I think also Americans are kept very satiated. We're kept fat, happy. We're kept full of carbohydrates and alcohol and drugs. And it keeps us, I mean, honestly, when you've got two cars in a driveway, and people's rent for the most part is paid. Revolution is just, it's not on everybody's menu for the day.
Yeah.
And you look at every other country where things are touch and go, things are basing themselves off of U.S. economies, and whether or not we do well, they also don't tend to intervene. But I just think American satiation is a big problem with it. I think if we had a risk or a chance of more revolution, shit would change, and shit would change, But then again, we're kind of going through that right now with the Black Lives Matter movement, and with, that is becoming more of a daily thing that we're seeing. More revolt. I personally hope it keeps up. I think it needs to.
Sure. Yeah.
So give us a little history lesson on Australia. How did it come around to being compulsory, and how did you guys get that shit passed? Because that's what we need to learn from.
Look, as wild and colonial as our country may seem to people, I've been regularly asked when I've been overseas, do kangaroos hop down your street? And, that kind of, do you have microwaves? Have you got IKEA and all that kind of stuff? Like, yes. But we actually, there's a lot of rules in this country, and we like to think of ourselves as kind of lawless, wild,
outlaws,
but at least anti-authoritarian.
Right.
But quite honestly, I think we just, for the most part, do what's told, and so I don't think that would have been hard. I don't know when it started. I assume it started at the beginning of when we had government, but I couldn't tell you exactly. But it's certainly been, on another more extreme level, I was fined for not voting in a local council election. Even that's compulsory. So we have federal, state, and definitely council elections where we actually have to vote. So it's not just the federal one.
How do they feel about putting that shit, digital, or making mail-in or anything? Since you have so many things that you have to vote on, you're required to vote on. What's the kind of nation's pulse on, doing that shit? Like, you get a warning on your phone says, "Don't forget, vote today. Click here to vote for this." How does everybody feel about that?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you that stuff, but I've definitely done quite a few mail votes because I've been either heading out on tour or, occasionally I've just done an early vote at they sometimes open polling booths early. Yeah, but I've definitely done a few by mail, and that's been a constant since I've started voting in a way. So I don't think there's any. Honestly, I don't think there's a conversation about that. Not that I know of, anyway.
Is the mail-in thing sort of a pain in the ass? Do they make it difficult, or do they push for in-person?
They prefer in-person, definitely. But I think that's more because of how the ease at the other end for them counting them, and the speed at which it can be all counted. So I assume that's the reason.
Right.
Sorry.
What was the fine like?
It's not a more exciting story.
Oh, no. I mean, hell, it's interesting to me. What was the fine like? How much did you have to pay for missing a local election?
It was $280. I can't quite remember, but it was enough to be a pain, Yeah.
Yeah. And I expected less than that, I guess.
Yeah. Expected like a $50 fine or something. It was
annoying. And I actually didn't know. I didn't know that was the case at all, that you had to. I assume I've just always gone, whatever, tick the box, But the thing with local council is you really, unless you really look into it, you don't know who the people are. You know, they're not really widely known. Well, it's certainly not to my, demographic. Yeah, it's to be quite honest, it's of such little interest to me who is on the local council. It just doesn't really.
I have missed local elections, and not felt too bad about it. Oh, that's today. God, my show's coming on though.
Yeah.
Or even knowing, I remember for years not even knowing what a comptroller does. I'm voting for one. It's like, who should be my comptroller? Well, I guess I wonder what the fuck a comptroller does. Who are these people? I don't know. But yeah, that happens here too. We see it a lot, especially with local elections and general. And the funny thing is, when you step back and look at it, the local grassroots politics, what's going on in your community, are probably more important to you than the presidential is anyway. Right. Those people are so far removed. Except this year, I'd say, it's affecting things. It's going to affect things constitutionally pretty damn soon if we don't do something about it.
Yeah.
I'm worried about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh. It's important.
It seems like a big one for you guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Your day to day is very important in grassroots. What you're paying for your water bill, how your local system's taking care of the environment, or what kind of taxes are being passed for parks or schools. It's very important. Absolutely
agree. Yeah. But at the same time, it's just literally, I don't know. I don't know how I would get information about these people.
Yeah.
I might see their face and a slight, paragraph about what they intend to do, which generally sounds like a typical political blurb that you skim over because it's just full of nonsense. But I don't know how I would get to know that person any better. I know you can write to them, you can probably make an appointment with them, but I'm not going to do that. I'm too busy.
Right. Yeah. And they're dialing it into.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they're doing. So why should you feel bad?
Yeah.
Right.
But that happens a lot here. It happens worldwide, really.
It's definitely hard to have a great, for me, I don't have a great deal of faith or, look, even the word politician is slightly upsetting to me, because I know what, it has a lot of baggage, I suppose. And I don't know whether it's just because growing older, your eyes open wider, or whether it actually has got worse because of how media portrays things and how they have to, the news cycle and social media and all that kind of stuff. I don't know whether that's changed things for the.
I think it has.
Yeah,
I think it has.
But I just hear them talk and just think, wow, I couldn't sort of think less of you in a lot of ways.
Right. Well, yeah. Don't get it twisted. It's their fault just as much.
Yeah.
For running pork campaigns and just not giving a shit.
Right. But I think, there are lines that get crossed in effort to win. And some are willing to cross lines that others aren't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm glad that they're not willing to cross those lines. I'm glad that at least one party is like, I don't really want to have Russia coming in and vouching for me, and giving me this election. I don't want that. That seems bad.
Yeah.
And one party is okay with it. And guess what? They won.
Yep.
Yeah. Considering the history of the two countries, it seems really wild to me. Like, one of my favorite movie genres is Cold War, spy, espionage stuff. Like, I love that stuff. And, the if it's an American-made movie, it's like pretty anti-Russian. So for me to hear it's from someone removed from that, but
well, and those are the people that were the most anti-Russian, right? Are the ones that are now on board with it. And I've seen them go from doing that to saying better Better Russian than
dead
Democrat.
Yeah.
Or,
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. Better red than Dem. Yeah.
Oh, is that really?
Oh, yeah.
It's true.
Mhm.
It's true. Right. And it has become very much, and they will deny it to the core, but it's so blatantly obvious that it is party over country right now.
I think they kind of like that authoritarian nature of, I think when somebody like Donald Trump isn't really winning hearts and minds and needs to take control by authority. I think that's what they respect about Vladimir Putin. And that's what they respect about the old guard of the KGB and things like that. They're like, well, there's a guy who gets things done. He doesn't listen to liberals. He's going to go and he's going to tell everybody what's what. And if
guess what? He's going to take your farm away soon.
Right.
He will.
Yeah.
Yep.
What happens to the freedom, banner then?
Yeah. Yeah. It gets kind of shoved under the rug for a minute.
Yeah.
No, well, it really is Orwellian, because they find a way to spin it like, no, we didn't take your farm. It was the other guys.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, wait a second. You're the one in power. Look at what they're doing right now. And this is a prime example. Right now, they're talking about if Biden wins, you're going to have all these riots and madness and chaos in the country. And they're showing like video clips of madness and chaos going on under fucking Trump's America. It is happening right now with him in charge. And they're saying, you don't want this shit to happen. Guess what? It is right now.
Where did you get your B-roll? Where did you get your stock footage? That's from yesterday.
It's quite incredible that they can create such a misleading narrative and put it out.
Right. Oh, I guarantee you, if Obama had been happening, he would have been having to own every single bit of it.
Yeah.
Every single bit of it. And the double standard is so huge. I'm assuming you've probably heard about the Kenosha shooting and all of this stuff with the 17-year-old kid that goes in, and they're rioting up there. They got a right to, they shot a dude again. The police did, and they're having a protest. This kid just goes in and shoots it. But meanwhile, you shoot over, halfway across the country, right? They're storming the state house, for their own protest, and it's a bunch of anti-maskers and people that are just like, let me in, I demand, right? Imagine a black kid walking in there with a gun and shooting up that place.
Yeah.
Or, just the fact that you've got these guys with AR-15s and semi-automatic rifles walking into state houses all across this country. Well, they've got a right to protest. And it's like, try taking a loaded AR-15 up to the White House.
Yeah.
Step on the lawn, see what's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
You're going to get dropped immediately. Now, why is that okay to come up in a senator's face without a mask, barking about masks, carrying an AR-15 if you're the right color?
Yeah.
We're confused. We're confused, very confused right now. I hope we can get rid of some of this confusion. Yeah. But anyway, not to rail on politics and get all pissed off all night. I could do it.
I
could definitely do it. But I'm trying
our time in talking.
Sparing the listeners.
Jace, what do you like to talk about apart from politics?
Well, I did start it, I guess, didn't I?
You can. Yeah, we don't stop very easily once we get on that train.
I guess I'm interested. In it makes sense to me to talk about what's going on in you guys. So that and all this stuff is. It's pretty big news over here as well, to be quite honest. And we always get US news.
Sure.
Since I was a kid, US television shows have dominated our screens, to be quite honest. Prior to the 80s, I would say it was more British, and then it became just more US stuff. And we often know more about your president than we do about our prime minister, and it's I suppose it's almost celebrity, isn't it? There's an element of fame to a president that just doesn't happen for pretty much any other leader.
Right.
It is. And I find it simultaneously flattering and embarrassing. Just like celebrity, and the fact that we talk to people from Scotland, we talk to people from the UK, we talk to people from Australia, and in a lot of ways, firstly, it's funny how much you guys in other countries, especially Western ideologue countries, know more about our system of government than we do.
Yeah.
But secondly, just that affects you all so much. I mean, I guess that's part of that sphere of influence, right?
Yeah.
And what's going on, and the high production value in American film and music and fashion, everything.
Yeah.
But then still, it's simultaneously kind of embarrassing and flattering. It's like, oh, look, they are concerned about what's going on here, but it's like, are they concerned or are they just inundated?
Yeah.
Well, I think there was a time when we really kind of were we're the country that has a lot of power, that is kind of magnanimous. We're not gonna let anything bad happen to anybody.
Right, the big brother. Yeah.
Right. We're like the nicest big brother that you could hope for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And it was kind of reassuring to know, okay, we've got the most powerful country in the world, but they're chill.
Right.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right. And now it's starting to look like what the fuck is happening with the coolest country.
Now the bully big brother is coming out.
Yeah.
Right. They're starting to look like the guys we were scared about.
Mm-hmm. The one who berates you and punishes you when your parents aren't home.
Right. And rest assured, half of America is like, what the fuck right now?
Sure.
And we're flipping out over it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Sorry if that doesn't give you comfort.
It's impossible for me to look. There's so little known. I know from experience going to touring in your country, how little is known about Australia. And in fact, once being asked, "Oh, you speak good English?" for some,
right.
Yeah, we speak English. But the reverse side of it is, we actually, and I don't know, I can't answer you whether it's just being inundated or whether certainly your music culture, movie culture is the biggest for us. Like, we have a minnow industry as far as movies go. And I'm not saying we haven't made good movies, but the industry is so small, and same with the music industry comparatively. I think we have an exceptionally strong musical output for the population. Yeah. But it's so small compared to yours, and so therefore, and we've always looked to you for, Australia has not been ever regarded as a cultural center, whereas, New York, Paris, whatever, London, they've all been regarded art-wise or music-wise or, whatever, as cultural centers, but we're always on the outside.
All right. Well, let me tell you a secret about America. First of all, don't do that shit because we are totally making this up as we go along. Right. Most of the times it's people on drugs and different fashionable drugs that are going on at the time. You look at the 80s, for example, it's all fueled by cocaine. It was all cocaine's fault, everything that happened in the 80s. Yeah. So that's South American influence more than anything.
Right, which maybe Donald Trump Jr. right now, too, if we got to see his speech, looked like that might be coke fueled.
Right. And the second thing is, the big thing to remember about America that's so disgusting to me too is that we treat every country like a novelty, right? Yeah. In so many ways, like America to Australia, to us is Paul Hogan, right?
Yeah.
It's it's men at work. And we get this idea in our head, and it's just stereotypes of these places, Scotland and everywhere else. It's just like we latch on to think, oh, the guys with the balls on their hats and the skirts, it's
right.
And then we don't give
monster.
Right. And we don't give it any more thought than that. And we stop, we go full stop, and then we go back to our Levi's. And we go back to our bullshit.
I think there's, for me, coming to your country, that's what I expected.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that's a cultural identity that is just ingrained, but I wouldn't expect. Honestly, I don't expect any other person from another country to know anything about Australia.
Right.
And I don't really have any expectations in that regard. But then when you do find people who are more switched on, who are looking out to other countries and other cultures, then you can enjoy that conversation, and it's actually, really valuable, I suppose. But we have ignorant people in Australia, but I think on the whole, I mean, I have seen the statistics. We travel a lot more. We fly to we fly to the US more than you guys fly to Australia, and even higher than that is New Zealand, which, just for any listeners, it's a separate country to Australia.
Right.
And they're even higher rates of passport holders. And so I guess that that's a huge part of it. Going to see another country informs you firsthand. It's not just theoretic. But,
absolutely.
But traveling, the first time I came to your country, we landed in LA, then flew to New York, and drove right around the country.
Yeah.
And I gained an understanding of a couple of things. One being you kind of do have everything there. And I don't mean culturally, I mean geographically. You can go from coast to coast, mountains, incredible rivers, cities. You literally, there's less need, I think, to go to another country to see something different, because not only is it a huge country, it's very varied. That was my take on it. I can sort of see why you would just jump in a Winnebago and drive 2 days and go to some other thing, So that made sense. The other thing that made sense was the God thing, because, look, when you see a mountain the size of what, you're driving along and there's like this mountain that you can't actually, my brain can't actually get the scale of, to be quite honest. And I'm thinking, I think that's pretty big. And then I see a pine tree and I go, oh shit, that's extremely big. So the scale of landscape to human is, for want of a better word, that it's godlike.
Right.
So I certainly understood some of that stuff a bit better, I think. I could have that completely wrong, but just
I think you're right. I think the vastness makes you consider the eternal. And that's part of it. Because there's a lot of nothing here in America too. A lot of people don't understand that. I remember my wife going to Germany in high school and talking to other high school kids that were there, and they really kind of thought that America from coast to coast was one big city full of gunshots and crime, based on the movies they were watching.
Right.
She was like, "No, I live in Missouri," which you have to understand is like, okay, a lot of places it's like 40 miles to the nearest place to get a gallon of milk. It's just endless like prairie and nothing, grass. I mean, we have states and states that are just full of nothing more than prairie grass.
Drive across Kansas sometime. You'll be amazed.
They say they've got hills. I haven't found them yet. I've been through there a lot. but that's I think part of it. I mean, even when you look at evolution and people just can't conceptualize that. They can't conceptualize what a million years would do. I had a conversation just the other day with somebody and pulled a gem out of my pocket that I like. Is there, if there's evolution, why are there still monkeys? And I was like, well, for the same reason that there are pugs and poodles, but we still have wolves. We know they came from those things. But selective breeding just takes a long time,
Yeah.
And it's hard for us Americans to fathom that. You know, and we're a young country too. I think in a lot of ways that affects our politics, and that affects our feelings about God and religion just being fresh. You know, we haven't been worn down by, you know, ancient structures that are here, things like that predate Christianity.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, we're for the white people here are the same, but you know, we have you know, a very ancient. Well, you know, the people who actually own this country have an ancient culture, and it's another thing. We pay less attention to the relics and the kind of mapped history that's already here. That, you know, like they're only recently digging things up, fossils and whatever, and actually, you know, properly paying attention to it. And often it comes from someone from another country pointing it out, and it's I think part of that, you know, we certainly have a denial and a guilt about what went down here, or, you know, what still happens. It's still such an ingrained thing with us. Like it's and, you know, I think, believe it or not, the Black Lives Matter protests, you know, we had big ones here too, off the back of ones that were happening. You know, again, your culture affecting ours. Certainly for the positive, I would hope.
I hope so.
Yeah, look, it's a matter of keeping that narrative going, though, isn't it? Not just while it's on your Facebook feed reacting to it. You got to keep that fire going, and but the inequality and just it's really bad here still with that stuff.
Oh yeah, things that I've read about Australia, especially with, you know, the Indigenous people, and the statistics are just so alarming in your country for the disparity of what's going on, like legal prosecution. You know, how many people are really going to jail just for being Indigenous peoples, or people that have been lynched or killed, and cases not being followed up on, and things like, shit's really bad there.
We actually just had one, you know, recently in our town, there was a death in custody of an Indigenous woman, and the case, or I actually don't know how far it went, but there was no criminal charges laid to the police at all. And, you know, that's common. And it's a really insidious problem that we have here. And it's not a popular political thing platform to talk about. So therefore it's not addressed ever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could, and there's no point in getting into a pissing contest either about scale or, you know, how often something happens here or there. It's bad when it happens all over, but I do see that it's disproportionate there. You know, we think we've got, you know, and we do. We have racism. Everybody does, but boy, it's especially when I was reading about some of the, you know, prosecution statistics or crime statistics against Indigenous people and how much it's not. Yeah. It seems really rough. Yeah.
Not to change tack too much, but, you know, do you guys know the album Power Rage by AC/DC?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So,
sure.
You know, the lyrical content in that album, you know, I guess you got Sin City, Riff Raff, rock and roll, damnation. I read an interview with Bon Scott, and he said that he felt like he got way too political and serious with his lyrics on that album. So, you know, he changed, and, you know, on the Highway to Hell, it was a lot more lighthearted. And I feel like we're letting Bon down here. We're talking serious.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know if you want to, if you got a joke or.
Oh, about Bon Scott? I don't have any jokes about Bon Scott. I love Bon Scott. I love AC/DC. It's just it kind of struck me funny that he would think he was getting too political on the album. I don't think anybody here in America would consider it.
Right.
Oh, wow. This is, just like New Year's Day from U2. I don't think anybody would say that about any AC/DC album.
This is Woody Guthrie. My God.
Yeah. Get that pinko shit out of my house. I don't think anybody. Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
As far as our perspective goes, I mean, they were just there, the party band, as far as everybody knows. It's kind of funny. They are viewed differently in different areas of the country.
Okay.
I can remember coming down to Missouri from Illinois, and you're probably not going to have any contextual reference to that, but both Midwestern states, pretty similar in a lot of ways, just farm country, right? I come down there to southern Missouri, and Matt's brother was telling us, like, oh, AC/DC is like everybody plays AC/DC is these rednecks,
Right, it's redneck music down there.
Redneck music, as far as it was like, really? Because where I grew up, I mean, some rednecks listened to it, but Osco, like, nobody listened to Bon Scott because he wore a dress on stage.
Oh,
so
wow.
So they were like, well, no, the homophobic element was that they were kind of too out there, or punk rock.
Wow.
In some ways.
Yeah. I almost don't want to tell people, like, there's a part of me that I go between, like, bursting their bubble with stuff like that because I don't like, them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And letting them like something and just kind of enjoying that, ha ha ha, you like this.
Right.
Yeah.
And it totally represents everything you hate.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man, I love AC/DC. I love how Bon Scott used to wear a dress on stage and he was real political. Wait, what?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, I kind of grew up with that stuff, and and then I would definitely argue that it became very unhip to listen to them, and in a way, we use the term bogan, but that is, it's redneck.
Yeah.
And that's more what it was attached to. And, once sort of grunge and stuff came along, it was certainly very not cool to like AC/DC.
Mm-hmm.
But, I couldn't help but just love them because I grew up with it. And I really couldn't understand why, if you love rock and roll music, I didn't really get it, why it was so bad to like them.
Yeah. Yeah. Great riffs.
They were so influential. I think it's just now kind of starting to get recognized how many different artists that are out there today that will go back and say, I fucking loved AC/DC.
Yeah. And I mean, I was watching something the other day where, it was Brian Johnson and Angus interview. Mm-hmm. Anyway, and then it only just dawned on me that really the last, I kind of liked most of their stuff, but really the last album that I loved was Back in Black. I don't think there's an album after that I'm just, as into. Right. Certainly like Fly on the Wall and Flick of the Switch and that. I like them, but there's some dud tracks, I reckon. Right. I mean, better than anything I'll ever do, but AC/DC is good, But yeah, then it got me thinking, like, wow, they've gone a long time on the laurels.
Oh,
yeah, some old material, really.
Yeah.
At least maybe this is my perspective, but I find it interesting that there doesn't seem to be much of a controversy going from Bon Scott to Brian Johnson. Yeah. Like most of the time when there's a new singer that comes in, even if it's like something where somebody dies, right? Yeah. And oh my God, you don't hear Brian Johnson's no Bon Scott. I mean, you might to a degree, but it's not just like that with vitriol. Just it'll never be as good. Right. Like there are a lot of people that are just like, Brian Johnson's cool. I like him.
Yeah, I think it's like the most you'll hear generally is who you like better, but it's not. Yeah. You like them both. You just like one a little more than the other. But I don't think anyone. I think Brian, God, that's a huge role to fill, and I guess because he wasn't he never tried to steal the thunder off Angus. You know,
Right.
he knew his role, and he just does it, I guess, you know. How many sexual innuendos can one man think?
Right.
I mean, that he's...
Is it a touch too much?
Book of Records for that. He's got to be up there
Right.
with like Benny Hill or someone like that.
Right.
Right. And I would like to say, oh, if he hadn't, you know, maybe it's because he died and people are going, well, okay, what are you going to do? But look at like, you know, Randy Rhoads dies and everybody that's been after him is like, it's no Randy Rhoads, you know, for Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah.
Right. And some really good guitarists have come through there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think sometimes it's just if it's different, isn't it? It doesn't. There's no the quality control isn't the issue. It's just it's not the same.
It's not the same. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And somehow Brian Johnson and AC/DC, there was enough of what was already there.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, it's surprising they didn't just pull a total rebrand, you know, and they could have done that. You look at like bands like Mother Love Bone who just changed over to Pearl Jam. We're just like, you know, we're just not that anymore. And and they went that way intentionally too. They were just like, we don't want the same singer, we don't want, you know, the same sound. We're just going with something different, and did, and both were successful. But
yeah, from what I can gather, the AC/DC was Malcolm and Angus.
Right.
So it was probably less important than you might think as to who the singer was, you know? Like I think they were just so driven. This is, you know, just stuff I've read, interviews and whatever. It just seems like those two were AC/DC. So whoever was around them, that's what I was going to...
They were going to be AC/DC too. Yeah. And it's all based in the blues too, and blues rock. And I mean, that's hard to, that's timeless anyway.
Exactly.
You know, you can't touch it. You still can't. I mean, there's still great blues rock artists that are coming out.
Yeah.
Putting a timeline on that, when did you pick up a guitar, man? When did you, how old were you and whatnot?
I was 12, I think, 11 or 12, which is a really long time ago. It's like mid-80s.
Yeah.
And I got an acoustic guitar, and actually my first guitar teacher was a Catholic nun.
Nice.
She was a really lovely person, actually. And she taught me the chords, you know, like we went through this progressive rhythm guitar book. And I came out the other end of that with, like I could play songs, and I'd worked out how to, you know, hear things, just, you know, copy stuff by ear. Yeah. Which was one of the most valuable skills that I learned. That's how I started.
Cool.
Right on. So you went to Catholic school then?
No. My mother taught at a Catholic school, and then knew that this nun was giving lessons. So that's how that happened. I lived in a really small town, and you know, there was no music shop where you could go get lessons. It was really like finding someone who could teach you. So
you knew, or somebody knew. Yeah.
Right, take what you can get.
Well, that's cool.
Exactly. Yeah. And look, I got to say, it was great. She would be on the piano, I was on the guitar. Taught me about timing and melody and rhythm, and can't fault that.
Yeah. So eventually you play bass primarily though with DEAD. I mean, you go back and forth, right? Playing both guitar and bass and recording different tracks, or? I
do record guitar with DEAD. Yeah. So I do play both, but I would consider, it's funny actually, you know, I consider myself more of a bass player, but I think I'm a bass guitarist. And I saw, I actually heard John Entwistle describe himself that way. And I think, you know, I'm not in any way trying to say I'm John Entwistle, but I can relate to what he's saying. It's more, you're pushing into guitar territory. You're just using a bass, and that's definitely where my playing is.
Do you use a standard bass tuning?
I've used a few different ones. For a long time, standard dead tuning was sort of D natural, then drop C.
Okay.
And then now I've just really changed to basically just drop D in standard and drop D. And I just find the reason I did that is because, instruments are made for a certain tuning,
right.
Ideally, and I feel like the instrument just plays better.
Yeah.
In a more normal tuning. You got
a gear preference you've stuck with lately, or as far as guitars go?
I just love P basses.
Yeah.
I've played EGCs and different. I've tried different things, and there's great instruments. To be honest, I don't get too bogged down in it, but P bass does what I need it to do.
Yeah.
And also, if I ever need to get a new one, they're everywhere. And
yeah.
There's an element of that I don't want to have anything too specific.
Yeah, they're a real workhorse too.
Yeah.
It's not like carrying a violin bass around on tour that you got to worry about cracking.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a baseball bat stuck to a plank of wood. It's just
right.
Yeah. So they're, they're very. I think they're versatile too, to a degree. They're arguably less versatile than a jazz bass or something like that, but they just have that strong mid range, and that's really important for. Jam and I cross over in a lot of frequencies, so I've got to have my own area that I take up as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the
right. Well, it's different for everybody.
Yeah,
it really is. You can have one really expensive high-end piece of gear that is not going to work for somebody, right? And you could have, the cheapest piece of crap. I found this in a garage sale.
Yeah.
But it works for me, right? And it just depends on the person and their needs.
Absolutely. Some of my favorite players, and as I say, I'm not a pedal collector or an instrument collector particularly. I have a few basses, whatever, but I don't. I'm not sort of always on the lookout for the next thing. I'm more thinking about what I'm writing rather than
your gear.
I'm not. My gear for me is just a means to an end in a way. I mean, I'm interested in it, and it is somewhat specific, but I'd be happy to play through most amps as long as the volume's there.
Yeah.
Some amps I think just suck and are overrated, but that's just how they. Yeah.
Any specifics you have to have, like flat wound strings or anything you only play on?
I usually string with Diodario round wound. And, they're pretty readily available. They give me a little longer in the brightness for live because for instance, when we tour in the US, it's usually in your summer, and I'm sweating.
Oh yeah,
a lot, and sweat just kills strings, and so I usually get 3 or 4 gigs out of a set of strings, and then I'll want to change them.
Oh, wow. Mine last a lot longer. I'm a living room rock star, though.
What was it? The guy from Soundgarden, I think it was. I saw some interview with him, and he was saying, I change them every 2-3 years.
Yeah.
Like, surely you've broken them by now. Like,
oh, yeah. Huh.
Oh, Lisa, Umberger, how long did she say she had her strings on her bass?
I don't remember.
There's a story with it. She went to get new strings. So this is Lisa Umberger from the Toadies, and now she's got her own band called Soul Shifter. She'd gone to get new strings because she was kind of getting back into it. She's kind of been on the sides for a while, and
she plays a Rickenbacker.
She needs to get new strings. Yeah, she plays a Rickenbacker. She goes out, and whatever string she's looking for, the guy at the Guitar World's like, you don't want to get
those are the wrong strings for that bass. You shouldn't be playing those.
Totally, mansplains to her what she needs to be getting. Right, and she's like, she's got a platinum record at home.
Yeah.
You know,
and you work in a Guitar Center, you fuck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't know who he was talking to. Yeah. That's so totally the wrong truth.
That's so common.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I don't know if Jem mentioned this band Mo that we've toured with a few times from Norway. I don't know. Have you guys heard them?
Yeah, I have. I did when I was doing some back research back before we had Jem on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Guro, the bass player, is an absolute mammoth on the bass.
Uh-huh.
Not only that, she plays upright and, is classically trained, all that kind of knows her shit back and front,
Uh-huh.
And, we were on tour in Australia with her, and I witnessed that. I took her to she needed strings, took her to a guitar shop, and the guy goes, hands her a packet of strings. She goes, no, that's not what I asked for. I want this, heavier gauge. He goes, well, this is like industry standard, and it's like, oh my God, can you please just give her the fucking strings? Like, just don't say anything more.
Yeah. That almost makes me want to say, don't say anything more. Let me get my phone out. I want to record this conversation.
Yeah.
Let's go.
You really get an understanding of what women have to put up with. It's
yeah. It's brutal.
Yeah, a lot of bullshit.
It's fucking terrible. I mean, I've talked before about it in earlier episodes, but I always wonder about the industry and how much shit that women have to deal with in the industry, how much minorities have to deal, or just anybody has to deal with in the industry. How much music have we missed out on?
Oh, yeah.
Because people have been discouraged.
Yeah.
I don't know shit.
Mansplained to about what they need to do or what they can or can't do. I can remember that when I was just fucking around with the bass when I was about 13 years old and didn't know enough about it. I went to a music store and I was like, I want a distortion pedal, this bass. This guy just telling me, and you could tell Mr. Ponytail, well, distortion just doesn't really work for a bass, and you don't want distortion. What you want is like, you want like a phaser, or you want. It was like, no, I don't. You don't understand the music I listen to. You don't understand the music I'm trying to play here, and it's supposed to sound fucked up. I'm not trying to play, Rush. And he's just, I can't in good conscience sell it to you. And
what the fuck ever?
I was like, dude, just make the sale. It's like, I've got the money. And I walked without buying it just because of his snotty fucking opinion.
Right. And the guy's thinking he'll thank me.
Right. He'll thank me later. And still, I just, despise him for it. And it's like, that's what I wanted. I kind of knew what I wanted, but I felt bad enough because I was a kid and I didn't really know what I was doing. And I was like, I wasn't going to be one thing if I could grab, Fender off the wall and just slay it and be like, okay, now you tell me, but I couldn't,
Yeah.
So I felt like a turd.
It's a horrible position to be in.
It is.
I guess anyone who's learnt music has been in that position. And those guys that don't know shit, but are going to tell you anyway.
Right.
That's classic men behavior.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I mean, it's bullshit. I mean, I'm betting that you do the same thing down there. If my car needs to be fixed, I'm the one that
your
takes
wife doesn't get hosed. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm a man.
Right, and it's not that she can't figure it out. It's more that why do we need to go through that hassle?
Yep.
Well, I'm a landscaper, and the amount of single women or older women or whatever who tell me how they've been ripped off is it's a repeating theme, and it's it's like really as I suppose it's an indication of how I haven't dealt with it, that how much it happens, Yeah. And my girlfriend will say the same thing. Like,
right.
Not only will men explain shit that they already know, and the best thing that she can do is just nod politely and go, okay, until it's over.
Right.
Because it's probably going to take longer if she starts saying, Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you got to pick your battles. And then she sounds like a bitch or whatever, and that gets spread around, just for saying what she knows. And it's like, yeah, no thanks, I understand.
Right.
God, it's gross. Yeah.
And we do. We here have a big problem with women sharing their opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that bitch. No. Right. We see Hillary as a bitch, Donald Trump as okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Right, but that's just locker room talk. Bullshit, that's rapist talk.
Yeah, I never had that conversation in a locker room. I don't know what you're talking about,
Right, and I call people out on that when they say that. Yeah, you know what? That's the kid in the locker room that needed to have the shit beat out of him.
Yeah, I even had one guy tell me after that whole grab him by the pussy event, and he was like, "Oh man, you can't tell me that I was on the wrestling team with you when we were 12. I remember how like Jason was saying in the locker room or whatever, I'm making up a name." And he was like, yeah, and you laughed at that. I was like, yeah, I was 12.
Yeah.
Like, I was not running for president of the United States of America.
Yeah.
And I was probably just laughing so I wouldn't get my ass kicked by saying.
That's right. I was going to say that.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem in a way.
Yeah, it is.
You often do a nervous chuckle because you're just like, fuck, I can't wait for this to be over. And
Right.
It's kind of perpetuates on itself, and I've been in a lot of work situations or whatever where, and it happens.
Yeah.
Well, it happens regularly when I deal with a lot of men situations, and look, there's some amazing men as well. I don't mean
right.
I don't want to get bogged down with how shit men are or whatever, but we often go to the lowest common denominator, and we'll start talking. Well, I'm not saying that I do it. I try not to do this, but it'll be like let's talk as crudely and as stupidly as we can, and then we'll all relate. No one will feel out of place except for the guy who wants to say, "Hey, I don't want to."
Right.
I don't want to talk about women like that or whatever. Yeah, and I often find myself in that situation with conservative people too. It's like they're really happy to put out their quite extreme views because they're conservative. They're not regarded as extreme as a non-conservative view.
Oh no, they'll think it doesn't even occur to them.
Yeah.
That there's anything wrong with them making that statement. They'll make especially like racist jokes.
Yeah.
Oh my dear God.
Yeah.
What really pisses you off, what really is egregious, is when you can tell that underneath it all, they're testing the waters, right?
Yeah.
And they're pushing buttons. They're kind of seeing where you lie by letting it fly off the handle.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And not giving any credit to the fact, and they're thinking, well, I'm going to find out whether this guy disagrees or agrees with me, and never giving any credit to the idea that maybe this guy just wants to get as far away from you as he possibly can. And the best way to do that is not engage you.
Yeah.
With this shit and walk away and be like, well, that guy can't be helped. And normally they can't, and there's no point other than picking a fight, and maybe you just don't want to do that today. Yeah.
And that's perfectly valid. But, I think my head gets tied in knots with the idea of how do we get past this stuff? Like,
right.
My vision of what I want things to do is that we're moving forward and getting better.
Yeah.
Not being so scared or, intimidated out of bettering ourselves.
Right.
And that's why that lowest common denominator shit upsets me so much. It's like, I don't want to talk like I'm a moron. I'm not.
Right.
I read books and I fucking try to educate myself. And I work hard on that, and that's kind of what I don't expect everyone to do what I do. I don't know. I don't want to be dwelling in the sandpit, for the rest of my life.
Right.
I do feel like a lot of the time, though, people like those people are also, they have no interest in learning, and they are threatened by people who are clearly like educated and want to continue learning.
Yeah.
Like it's automatically like they think they're better than me.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm better than you, but I wish you'd do something.
Yeah.
It's like that line in Idiocracy, when he's trying to talk to people and they're like, sounds gay.
Yeah.
They don't understand his vocabulary at all, It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, sometimes you just feel like a complete fool for even thinking that's, sometimes I come home and go, why do I even think about this shit? But I do, and I don't know.
Oh, you have to. And I think that, it's making a difference. And sometimes you do have to pick your battles. I mean, it's unfortunate, but you do. I mean, and pick the ones that are going to help.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I definitely try to, I don't have any power in my society or whatever, like right. I'm a low income earning, dude who's whatever, like, I can certainly help my local community or whatever, but I don't have any greater reach or anything. But, me and Jem certainly try to, we're not going to dumb down anything that we do. We're nerds, and we don't care that we're nerds. Like we try and challenge ourselves creatively. We also challenge ourselves through conversation and, shit like, did you know this or whatever, we're not aggressive, but we're not the super laid back either.
Right.
I suppose,
right.
We're pretty high energy. We've always got something on the go. And one thing that I think we come up against a fair bit is the fact that our music, because we are nerdy about it, we're not a beer drinking band. We're not a party band or whatever. Mm-hmm. Having said that, I think certain people enjoy it a lot, and our music's not, we're not trying to be elitist or anything whatsoever. But a friend of mine once said to me, say most music is on train tracks. You only have to be 1 centimeter off that train track to not be on that train track. You don't have to be. Mm-hmm. In fact, it's probably easier if you are completely avant-garde because you're probably on another track.
Right.
But if you're sort of just off this rock kind of metal, whatever track,
sure,
you're kind of more ostracized than you kind of can believe at times.
You get pigeonholed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's sort of like at the same time, I'm not complaining about anything. We're certainly very lucky. We have amazing people who follow us and really diligently, because we put out quite a bit of music and a lot of merch and stuff, and for the most part, people really get on board with that. And like it's every time you do something, when you're doing it, you don't think, oh, this will sell however much. You just doing it because you're trying to do,
right.
We actually try and write good songs. That's what interesting shit to us. And
and you do that. You manage it.
For sure.
Absolutely.
But at the other end, you kind of hope that someone else is going to like it. But some people have supported us from the beginning. And what I guess I'm trying to say is there's a lot easier bands to follow than us, and so we do really appreciate people sticking with us.
Right. Yeah. I get it. They're definitely easier to follow podcasts than this one.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, just to clear that up too, and I've had some confusion on my own part for American audiences who want to get your shit because there is a little bit of a crossover with being an Australian band. What is, so the social media places to follow here in the U.S. for getting merch, shit like that, so we don't have to worry about shipping from Australia. You guys have like a separate American branch of that, right?
Well, Vantage USA.
Okay.
Spelled with a W, or Wantage.
So it looks like Wantage, yeah.
Yeah. They did a release of our latest record.
Okay.
They did our first and last record, actually. Yeah, first.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, previously in this interview, I said my job was writing songs and drawing pictures. So I'm you might have to interview Jem again to get the proper answer out of this, but I do know that they have some of our stuff and or Rock is Hell in from Austria have our stuff, which the shipping would be less than from Australia, but I don't know about our back catalogue at all. Sorry.
But you've been working with Forbidden Place as well?
Yes. Yeah. They're doing a cassette release. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, which is really exciting actually for us because, we tend to do everything ourselves and, there's a fine line with that stuff, I think. And I actually read an interview. Jem's done all the press stuff for this record. I haven't done any interviews, so I've been reading his interviews and he actually mentioned this, that at some point you kind of wonder whether people aren't getting involved because they know you're going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
So, how long do you wait for someone to offer or
Right. I think he talked about that with us too.
Yeah. So, like we may shoot ourselves in the foot or we may just be doing what would be happening anyway. We don't, it's hard to know sometimes, but when other labels, want to work with us, we're certainly interested and always appreciate, it's a labor of love for any label. So, it's a lot of time and effort for people who aren't in our band, which is always really appreciated.
Yeah.
Well, it's getting interesting. The scene certainly is, and the industry is just getting interesting in the way of so much DIY and so much international stuff.
Right. How we're adjusting and growing and finding new ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to just be a major label, would just put everything out, and this, you get everything through Warner Brothers, or now that's not the case.
Yeah, and so if you're looking for new stuff, or do you just hear about stuff from other people? I'm interested how people find new shit they haven't heard of before, I suppose.
Yeah. I'm leaning towards labels lately. I'll find a label that I like, and as we mentioned, Forbidden Place Records. I mean, somebody was asking me, and I even posted this the other day. What do you listen to this week? Or I need some new music. I said, go to Forbidden Place Records, print out their artist sheet, throw a dart at it, and you won't be disappointed. I was like, every one on this label is fucking great. And we pimped them out a lot. Tony Willis and Kale and those guys, but
okay, that's good to hear.
But there's also good, local stuff. I mean, we've got Black Site, they're in Kansas City, Black Site Records. Check them out. We've had a few artists on from Bloodshot Records, Chicago, some good bands there. So that's what I tend to do. But I'm an old fart anyway, so it's kind of hard to know that I'm doing. I don't know if I'm doing it the right way.
I'm an older fart, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't lean on a lot of people's Instagram or shit like that. I'll check out a label, and if there's a few bands on that label I like, I'm like, well, these guys must at least have an ear, and maybe I should dig deeper through their bins, and that's what I do.
Yeah. And for your listening, what do you have a certain is there a particular sound that you guys are interested in, or are you pretty broad?
We're all over the place.
We are.
Shit. I like it. I like to tell people I listen to just about everything except pop country.
Okay.
That's about it. But I'll still listen to pop. I'll still listen to easy listening. There's a lot of. I just like good music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if anything follows too much of a formula, it kind of turns me off.
Yeah.
Just all over the place.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. Matt, what do you speak to on that part?
I'm all over the place. And I think John and I kind of, our tastes converge pretty well. Yeah. I tend to I'll go with a little bit milder in general, just for my everyday listening than John will, but that doesn't mean that we don't appreciate each other's end of it, I think, for the most part.
Yeah, I'd say, and I might be talking out of school, but Matt probably listens to more folk than I do.
Yeah, probably.
I probably listen to more like death metal than he does.
Okay.
You know, but we still converge on both of those parts at certain points of times. I mean, there's still intersections.
Right.
For all of those things.
It's not uncommon for me to come to John like, hey, dude, I found this thrash tune. Check this out. Or John to throw like a folk artist at me.
Okay. Yeah. That's great.
So.
Yeah. It's, I think at some point on the internet, I just hit, well, there's too much, and I don't know.
There's a wall, yeah.
You know, like it just sort of slightly overwhelmed, and you know, I used to always look up Aquarius, and pretty much just same thing. Take a stab, and found a lot of new music from there. I mean, I'm talking quite a long time ago, but you know, at some point the internet almost became. You know, I needed a point of contact before I'd just go searching.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kept us busy enough. And another thing about this podcast too, in particular, it just keeps us busy with if we'll get a referral or something, you know, to a band and to check them out. And it's like,
we get recommendations from people all the time. We've come across so many different artists that I would have never heard about if we hadn't started doing this podcast. You guys included.
Then we'll start doing our homework, and then it's like a week of just like binging, you know, that artist or whatever. And it's like, you know, I want to be familiar with the catalog. I want to be familiar with their music and everything. So it occupies my week, and that's good. It's good because I hate hitting a wall. You know.
Yeah, me too.
But sometimes I'll get real obsessive compulsive and listen to like the same track over and over for days on end, you know, if I rediscover it or something.
Right.
Yeah. You know, I can tend to sometimes, you know, I'm listening to mine and Jem's rehearsals and demos and stuff. And, and then I'm just like, fuck, I just need something that's not this. And I certainly, I'm probably similar to you guys. I like the full rainbow as long as it's not too, I suppose, predictable in most ways. But I've kind of recently been searching out more and more sort of synth stuff, and I've got a few friends who do that stuff, and it's a world that I'm so naive about, and you know, I'm really just dipping my toe, but I'm, you know, I there's something about the artists who just record stuff themselves, release it, you know, might do a limited run or whatever, and there's something that I really like about that. Still, they're just really, you know, small release stuff that. You know, it's not meant to go further than it goes.
Well, and you hate to use the term one-hit wonder. I really hate that term because there's been some artists who have some great back catalogs and everything, but they do have one that stands out. But I know what you mean. And I've always been fascinated how, like in the 70s, how that was a big part of everything that went on. There were so many artists that would just release one track. Yeah. And then the next week, the next guy would pop up, but it wouldn't be these dynasties, you know, of bands.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which gets kind of old after a while. Synth stuff, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I'm a big Wax Trax head, just being from growing up around that area and being turned on to that, or at least a lot of good synth stuff there. But a lot of good stuff out of the UK too that I barely know about. You know, I mean, I find a lot of UK guys are really into Gary Newman, Two Way Army, and stuff. And I just honestly haven't listened to a lot of it. I mean, I like some Gary Newman songs for sure, but there are guys who are ultra fans. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I'm just delving into it. So, any recommendations? I think writing music from guitar-based whatever, you know, I feel like it's a very different world, you know, like you.
Oh yeah.
And we obviously, including on our last record, we've have people guesting playing synths, and as soon as you add a synth, there's this inorganic element. But since listening to more stuff, I've found some people are really good at the mediation of the keyboard of the synth. Can be greater or lesser depending on I know some people are really good at, you get closer to their fingers, I think, like through the sound. Like some people are very coolly removed from it. The human element is somewhat distant, and some are able to get closer. And that's just something that I guess I've been picking up on with different people. I'm like, oh, you're really close to, there's heart in this one, and then there's more brain in other ones. And
well, I mean, just the piano in general, and you look at that instrument, it's very, it's very standard, right? I mean, you don't detune a piano, and it's all on scale, so it's what you do with that is going to, it's going to reflect a lot about you as an artist.
Yeah.
It's not like multimedia. It's its own media. A keyboard is.
Yeah.
And you can change. You can change the effects. You can change all sorts of shit with that. Not saying that it's a minimalist instrument, but you can certainly be a minimalist, and it's going to say a lot about the character of what you write and play, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So we've been going for a while now. I don't want to keep you on for like super long. You guys want to wrap it up?
I think we've got a lot in there. I don't want to take up all Jace's day either. Man, I had a really good time. You guys want to wrap it up? I'm good.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you want to drop? Anything else you want to mention before we go?
No, I enjoyed talking with you guys. It's always good, meet new people, and appreciate you even wanting to talk to me. So
oh, hell no, man. Oh, it's great.
Oh.
Yeah, we feel privileged. Yeah.
Man, we want really badly for you guys to get to come on a tour this way again, and maybe hit somewhere around us. We'd love to come see you.
When we can, we certainly will. We've always had a great time over there. And like another thing that I suppose observed over there is your understanding of live music and a live show. And, I suppose your population lends itself to having greater clusters of people involved in, underground music.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that our music is understood in places where you really wouldn't expect it is, really, really great for us. It's a huge thrill to play, Bismarck or, play somewhere in North Dakota or Montana or whatever. And, and people are getting it, like not only getting it, but really understanding. So it's been a great place for us to come to.
Awesome.
Oh, it's flattering. Yeah.
Well, we look forward to the day you can come back.
Come on, vaccine. Yeah. Come on, Bill Gates, get to work. All right. We'll wrap it up. Thanks, everybody. You've been listening to Undetermined, the podcast with special guest Jace from DEAD.
Yeah.
Check out their shit, Dead Sounds. Buy their merch, too. It's really cool. But thanks for coming on, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Take
care,
guys.